Salutations, everybody. I'm coming at you after having this guitar for a month, and I was kind of really singing its praises when I first got it. So, do I still think it's as good? So I've had this thing for a month, and I was really stoked when I first bought it and opened up the case because, you know, full transparency is that I saw a video that Andertons did, and Mr. Pete Henore picked this as his favorite single cut under $1,000. So I was like, oh shit, okay. Well, man, it's good. And I'm not going to go into the full specs and do the whole thing. Feel free to go watch my my first video. This is more so about what have I noticed over the last month, and do I still think it's as good as I said it was? And for the most part, honestly, the answer is yes. I mean, man, there's a reason that I just played this chords this body. I don't think it's chambered. I think it's just a slab of mahogany. There's no maple cap on this, which might be why, but it just resonates, man. Even when it's just sitting by my couch where I'm watching TV at the end of the night, I've been playing this thing instead of my semi-hollow or whatever. Couldn't even tell you why. Well, I probably could tell you why, which is biggest things I've noticed over time. This thing resonates like crazy when you play it acoustically, and I'm a firm believer that directly correlates to how it's going to sound coming out of an amplifier, which, oh man, we'll get to that. Thing number two I noticed, and this is, I could go on a whole tangent about this, but this is why I really like what Paul Reed Smith is doing with the SE line. The neck on this guitar is fucking weird. When I think budget Les Paul style guitars, single cut style, whatever, I would never in a million years think about a neck like this because it's got kind of a chunky neck on it with a really round profile. It's an asymmetrical profile, like an asymmetrical neck cut, but it almost feels like there's a soft V in there. I would just never think of budget single cut guitar having this neck, and I'm thrilled it does. And that's really, I think, why it's spent so much time as my couch guitar. The neck is just so comfortable. I mean, if you're on the smaller side, you have tiny hands, I always feel bad saying that. It sounds like an insult. It's not meant to be an insult. But if you have smaller, more delicate hands, you're probably not going to like a fatter neck, but you probably already know that going into this. Dude, this neck is chunky, not too chunky, but it's so comfy. I'm looking around the room at my instruments right now. This is my favorite neck that I own currently. I mean, it really is that good and that comfortable. The frets, the fret over time, that's one thing I brought up in my video. This got some chunky monkey frets on it, which frankly, in contrast to the guitars that I'm used to playing, which are kind of throwback to the 60s. So, they all have smaller frets than this thing. This has much more modern frets on it, which is a really nice touch. Really, really good for playability. And the number one standout from my first video I did was the pickups. Pickups in this thing, which, they come out and tell you that they are not a high output pickup. They went super low output on purpose. Again, this whole thing is kind of like a tribute to the guy that designed the Les Paul and the SG. And the best Les Pauls, everybody agrees, are the 58, 59s. Those were so low output humbuckers. I don't know resistances off the top of my head and that sort of thing. All I can tell you is these pickups, which are low output, they're not wound up super tight, they make this guitar. I mean, I know the intro little me playing was some dirty nastiness, but even just putting it into a clean Fender amp, they're so warm and well-rounded and clear and welcoming. It's like when I think about the Shire. This is gonna sound bizarre as shit, by the way. When I think about the Shire from The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, it's so nice and welcoming, and it feels like a warm hug. It was a little abstract of a metaphor, but that's kind of how I feel about these pickups. They're so good for, I'm getting kind of, I don't really think there's a ton of people that still shit on import guitars, like there used to be at least, which is good. But man, for an Indonesian built guitar that you can get brand new for under $1,000, this thing is just a monster, man. So I guess very quickly, just because I'm feeling talkative tonight, so I could ramble the whole time. Who is this guitar not for? This guitar is not for people looking for something higher output. If you're shopping for like a Schecter, an Ibanez, or this, if those other two are in your stratosphere, do those other two. This is really not that. Even if the headstock looks kind of funky because it's a PRS headstock, although I think this is kind of becoming traditional by this time. But this is not for super aggressive players. It's really not. The neck, not for that at all. It is a super comfy neck, but it is not a thin little like hot dog bun for shredding away. This guitar is probably not for people, like I said, who have tiny little hands. If you're just getting into this and you're like a 14-year-old girl or something, this is probably not for you, unless you're like super tall and whatever, man. But tiny little hands, or you really like a skinny, slim taper neck, probably not gonna like this. And then here's one that some people are gonna think is controversial. I don't think the finish looks amazing. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I think I've seen better sunburst finishes. I've seen much worse, but I would not call it stunningly beautiful. I'd say it's like an okay sunburst finish. So if you are like a stickler for a paint job, there's better sunbursts if you're gonna put it on your wall and just look at it 90% of the time. But if you are a guitar player that appreciates the classics and a big, fat, well-rounded, clear, clean tone, and a classic neck shape, man. Like, I keep coming back to the neck shape because I really took me that much aback. It's so different, but if you're used to playing old guitars, it feels right at home. I mean, they did a great job with this neck. I'm gonna sing the praises for this thing as long as I have it. For its neck, the pickups, killer classic pickups, great for anything up to even like moderate gain. For like Foo Fighters-y kind of stuff, like, yeah, dude, it's gonna sound great. If you're in like trying to be knocked loose, it's, maybe get a higher output pickup. But man, this really, I said in the first video that this is what feels like a really faithful tribute to a classic Singlecut, we're talking about Les Pauls, right? It feels like a really faithful tribute to a late 50s Les Paul, but with all the modern amenities that you would want, right? Like, I mean, you even have push-pulls if you want to use them for, that sort of thing. Not my thing, personally. But the frets are great. It's got a fatter neck on it, low output, really good quality humbuckers. It's lightweight too. I mean, not doing a maple cap on these, you save a good amount of weight on that if you have a bad back. So, man, I have to believe that for under $1,000, I think Mr. Danish Pete Honore was correct, because I don't know if I've played, and here's the thing. You can specs and blah, 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 blah. Yes, that's that all plays a factor, but just me, myself, and me sitting over here, in my opinion, I have never played a Les Paul style guitar under $1,000 that I liked more than this. 100% this thing, from build quality to sound to just the way that it feels in your hands. It feels like home after 5 minutes of playing it, and that feeling doesn't go away. So if you guys are thinking about this, man, I really highly recommend picking one up. And conveniently enough, there's a link in the description for, I'm still getting used to that. I've never made, actually, this is my first video since like I signed paperwork with them to start working with them. But if you want to support me, that is probably the best way to do so. If not, you know, like I said at the beginning, like, comment, and give me a sub if you kind of like what I do. But I guess those are my thoughts after a month with the PRS SE McCarty 594 Singlecut. The name is ridiculous, and I wish there was something a little more concise, but outside of the name, which I don't frequently have to say, this thing's great, man. I think it's really worth everybody giving one a try. And is it the best Singlecut Les Paul kind of guitar for under $1,000 brand new? Yeah. At least that I've been able to hold and play. Yeah, so if you guys are thinking about picking one up, I highly recommend it. Thanks, everybody. Take care.